Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Ian with Out of This World Reader, and it's time for me to blab about all the books I got to in the month of March. Like the month of February, March was kind of a mood read for me of the month. Whatever I was feeling, just picked it up. Other than sticking to those series that I started, I just strayed all over the place, mostly in fantasy and sci-fi. But I got to some other books, and I just want to go over them quickly before I get into the books. I just want to go over a little bit of stats. I read a total of 7 books, 1 being audio. I had 2 5-star reads, 1 4.5-star read, 2 4-star reads, 1 3-star read, and 1 2.5-star read. I read a total of 3 fantasy, 2 sci-fi, 1 historical fiction, and 1 classic. The age ranges between those were 5 adult books and 2 YA books. Overall, this was a really great reading month for me. Even though I only got to 7 books, I had read some new great favorites, and I finished some series sadly, but overall it was just a really good time. And even comparing that with like school reading, it was fun to just get to these other books and escape into these books that I just loved. So let's just jump right into those books. The first book I finished, I started back in the month of February, right at the end, and that was Spinning Silver by Naomi, Novik, which got 4.5 stars. I actually loved this book so much that I just had to do a book chat for it, so I dived more in depth with my thoughts. I'll definitely make sure to kind of leave it to a link to the video that I put out a while ago. Overall, I really picked it up at the right time. A winter storm had just moved in, and just the feeling that I got from the book and from the snow outside really just made the atmosphere even more whimsical, and it just made the enjoyment so much better. And I think this is a new winter classic that I hope to just come back to every winter and just reread, because it's just, I don't know how to explain just how much I had vibed with this book, and it was just a top-notch time that I had with it. If you haven't heard of this before, this was following several different perspectives of some different characters that were kind of in a tough rut, and each new scene kind of opened up a whole new can of worms. And as the story progressed, it's just a bunch of heartwarming found family values, but those values are just something that I always look for in books, and this just provided it so well. The next one I got to was sadly a disappointment for me, but I definitely want to come back to it in the future, because I might have been a little bit harsh on it and probably just picked it up at the wrong time. I had started reading it when I was reading a book for history class, and that was not a fun time. So I don't know if that impacted my enjoyment, but that was Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell, which I gave 2.5 stars. I also did a book chat for this, so I'll make sure to leave a link down below. But this was one of my most anticipated releases for this year, and it just had everything that I wanted. It was kind of this space opera themed, where Kim and Janen are basically thrown together and they have to solve this mystery of a murder that happened, and the empire that they live in is kind of on the brink of war, and to kind of save the empire they have to uncover the truth behind the murder and discover the plot. But their goal is just to save the empire, and that just sounded like everything I needed, and I just wasn't connecting with any of the characters, sadly. But I definitely want to come back to it in the future and give it another try. But this is a debut novel, and that's kind of why I want to come back to it in the future, is because I just felt like I was really too harsh on it, especially for it being a debut. So I want to come back to it, because I just felt like it was at the wrong time. So I'm going to reread it again. The next book I got to was the end of the series with following Katniss's perspective, and that was Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins, and I gave this 3 stars. To me, this seemed like this was the darkest of the 3. It really started off very kind of grim, and then from there it just goes downhill, and you aren't given much happiness. It seemed there was a little bit at the end, but still it was just very dark throughout. To be honest, I think this was my least favorite out of the 3, and I kind of explained my reasoning a little bit behind my series wrap up, but it was still a page turner and I got through it pretty quickly. I felt like the ending was rushed a little bit. It felt like the author kind of was just trying to essentially end it, is kind of what I'm trying to get at. I'm interested to hear what you think about this, but I wonder if, since she just came out with the prequel last year, I wonder if she'll kind of go into the future a little bit and follow one of the other characters, maybe like Gale or Hamish's kind of perspectives, and kind of produce another book. Let me know if you think that's pretty cool, or if you think she might kind of expand on it, or just cut the Hunger Games over. I think the book that surprised me the most this month was The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner, which I gave 5 stars. Yet another book that just surprised me so much that I had to do a book chat on. But out of nowhere, this kind of historical fiction just really took me away to kind of London back in the 18th century. It was a fun time overall for me. It was following a couple different perspectives of these 3 women and 2 women and then a younger girl, as they kind of one's uncovering the truth behind the apothecary killer, and the other 2 are kind of surviving it and trying to make it out alive. A little bit of background on this: there's 3 perspectives, 1 being present day and 2 being in the past. And the 2 in the past, one is the apothecary killer who kind of helps these women kind of overcome the oppressive men that kind of trouble these women, and somehow maybe if they've cheated on them or just anything in general. And these women come to Nella, and she kind of makes this little bit of potion for them, and then they give it to them, and then the men die. And there's another perspective in the past, Elisa, who comes to Nella for help, and then from there it just kind of takes off. But in the present day, there's this other perspective, Caroline, who kind of comes across one of these apothecary vials, and then from there she's just trying to uncover the mystery behind it. But I just picked this up on a whim, and I loved every second I spent with it. I connected with Caroline so much, and it was one of the faster-paced historical fictions that I've read to this day, and I think that's why I ended up giving it 5 stars. I think that was due to the fact because I was able to connect with the character Caroline so much, and it was just more fast-paced and more upbeat, if you know what I mean. I then got to yet another fantasy book, this one being YA, and that was The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna, which received 4 stars. This is yet another debut novel, and it was really a great entry into this new YA series that I will be continuing on when that second book comes out, hopefully soon. I'm already kind of anxiously waiting for it. But this is following Deca, who lives in this fantasy world where your color of your blood determines what you kind of do, or what you can do in life. And should it run gold, then you are sentenced to death. And from there, unfortunately, Deca's blood runs gold. And I guess not unfortunately, because she comes across this mysterious woman and offers her a chance at a second chance to kind of train with these other girls that have their blood run gold and kind of fight these death streaks that plague the capital. And from there, it would just really unfolds. And I did a book chat on this, and it's hopefully coming out soon, so be on the lookout for it. I love this new fantasy series. The world in general was just so mesmerizing. I feel like it would be a perfect spring or summer read, because it included like a lot of jungle scenes, it seemed to me, and just the plant life and the animals that kind of live throughout. It just seemed like something that should be just read for summer or spring. So if you're looking for a book for those seasons, definitely check this fantasy book out. The next book that I got to was an audiobook, and that was Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson, which I gave 4 stars as well. I've been really trying to get to more classics, and I saw something online that you should try reading not reading, but listening to classics first and then reading them, and it just makes the enjoyment and kind of the ability to read them more kind of suitable for everyday readers and rookies, because I haven't read many classics, especially in school. Like, they never really made us read anything that was considered classics or just read anything in general. So I'm really a rookie out here, and so I just thought I'd give this audiobook a try. I did it on Audible, and that just made it so much more enjoyable because they almost did it like a play, and they had like sound effects, the cannons, sword fights, they had it all. But each character had a different narrator, and with those sound effects, it just kind of made the environment feel like I was just on that pirate ship, digging up gold, going on the hunt, and it was just a good time. I will say that I really wish that I had this read to me as a child when my imagination was just running wild. I feel like if I had it kind of consumed it back then, I would have just been imagining these different adventures that I would have went on, and I still, like, after reading this, I'm kind of pondering adventures because my imagination is still pretty high, but it wasn't as high as when I was a youngin', so really wish I got to it sooner. And the last book that I got to this month was the big ol' one, and that was The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson, which received 5 stars. I really want to do a series wrap up for the whole Mistborn trilogy in general, so if you want to see that, please let me know, because I can talk about this series so much. If you don't know what the Mistborn trilogy is, it's following Kelsler in the first book, who kind of brings together this cast of crews with all kinds of different magic abilities, because this unique magic system follows metals, allomancy, and each metal allows a different ability, like a control of it. And Kelsler kind of comes together with this crew, and they just kind of try and overthrow the evil Lord Ruler. And then from there, just the series kind of unfolds. This one in general, I'm just gonna say this, it was heartbreaking, and at the end I was sitting there tearing up and crying, and I just kind of sat there on the couch and was just sitting there after reading that a certain part, and I was just kind of lost at words, and I just stared at space for a long time. But it was just truly heartbreaking. I don't think it could have been done any better though, and I just loved that I had got to this series. I didn't think that Brandon Sanderson could kind of expand on this world and the situation that the characters were in any more than he did in the first 2 books. But was I wrong? Yes, I was, because he just expanded more, and the world was just, new elements were brought into play, and I was lost. I was lost for words at how he kind of did this. I love how we got more from Spook and Sazed and some other side characters that we didn't get very much of in the first 2 books. But in this one, you're given more of their perspectives and the battles and challenges that they have to face, and I just love that it was kind of including some of those other side characters. I can't really get much more into it without spoiling some of the other books, but it was just, like I said, heartbreaking, but it couldn't have been done better, I don't think. And this is a series that I plan on just rereading in the future because it has become an all-time favorite. So if you haven't checked it out, please go check it out, because it'll break your heart, but it'll give you some of the best reading you've ever had. But those are all the books I got to this month. I'm currently reading The Throne of Fire by Riordan, which is the 2nd book in the Kane Chronicles. And I picked it up because I wanted more fantasy, but I wanted something a little bit more heartwarming and funny, because after reading The Hero of Ages, I was kind of in a rut, not like a bad rut, but just like a heartbroken rut, and I still wanted to read, and I felt like since I got some of those characteristics from some of his other books, I just would pick up Throne of Fire. I really wanted to continue on with the series. I love the magic system, and I love the characters that were introduced in the first one, and it really kind of left me curious as to where it would go after the Red Pyramid. So I just picked it up, and I'm about 100 pages in, and I can already say that I am enjoying the new characters that are kind of introduced, and the new plot and antagonist that was introduced. So as of right now, I'm loving it, and I'll include that in next month's wrap-up. Let me know any of your thoughts if you got to any of these books, and just your month of reading in general. Let me know what books you got to, and some books you hope to get to in April. If you want to see that Mistborn series kind of wrap up, please let me know, because I would love to do that. I'll make sure to leave some links to some other videos that I recommend you check out. If you want to connect with me on social media, I'll make sure to leave those down below as well. I hope you all have a splendid day, and as Ellie always says, adventure is out there. So I'm going to catch you next time. Bye.